Hello guys and welcome back to the F1 Tuber YouTube channel, and in today's video I will be making my list for the top 5 best drivers of the 2019 F1 season. Now guys, in devising this list I have looked at the drivers' qualifying and race performances across the span of the 2019 season, amongst other variables that I will come on to in my justifications. Kicking off this list at number 5, I have Ferrari's Charles Leclerc. In his first season at the Scuderia, the Monegasque was able to outscore his 4-time world champion teammate Sebastian Vettel, who has been at the team since 2015. Leclerc took 7 poles in 2019, the most of any driver. He took 2 wins, 10 podiums, 260 points, and he finished 4th in the Drivers' Championship. Leclerc's in my top 5 because in his first season at a big team, and I mean a massive team, Ferrari forces so much pressure on their drivers. Leclerc, in his maiden season at Maranello, was able to outscore a vastly more experienced teammate and almost force the team to favour him. And in a high-pressured environment, that is quite an achievement. And when I mean forcing his team to favour him, I mean through his relentless speed. Yes, Leclerc has made mistakes in 2019, and yes, he did finish behind Verstappen in the Drivers' Championship despite having a quicker car. But please remember that this was his second season in Formula 1, and yet he's taken the fight to the likes of Hamilton, Verstappen and Vettel. Look, Leclerc was never going to be number 1 on my list. As I said, he was defeated by Verstappen in the Drivers' Championship despite having a quicker car, and in fairness, he was outraced by Sebastian Vettel in 2019, but he did outqualify the German, and he finished ahead of him in the Drivers' Championship, and in my opinion that was on merit. He was simply better than the German in terms of wheel-to-wheel combat and dealing with pressure, which to me are signs of a future world champion. At number 4, I have Sergio Perez driving for Racing Point. Now, if this list was devised during the summer break, Sergio Perez would not have been touching this list. However, his second half of the season was everything that a midfield driver needs and more. Of the last 9 races of the season, the 9 races that followed the summer break, Perez scored at 8 of them, and the race where he didn't score, it was at Singapore where he had a mechanical failure, so that very much could have been a points finish as well. And Perez in the second half of the season did what Perez is notoriously known for, pushing his midfield car to the max, and he ended up finishing in the top 10 of the World Championship with a rather mediocre Racing Point car. Perez only made one noticeable mistake, I'd say, during the season, and that was at the German Grand Prix where he crashed out early on. In terms of head-to-head battles with his teammate Lance Stroll, Perez absolutely blitzed him in both the qualifying and race performances. And at the end of 2019, Perez finished 10th in the Drivers' Championship with 52 points coming from 11 points finishes. And considering that the team he drives for is owned by his teammate's dad, that would have maybe entered some trepidation into Perez's mindset, but when you look at his performances on track in the second half of the season, you probably wouldn't have noticed any bit of trepidation. Quite possibly any of the top 3 drivers on my list could be worthy winners of the best driver of the season in my opinion, because each of these 3 drivers were magnificent. But in third place I have Carlos Sainz. In his debut season at McLaren, he finished best of the rest in the Drivers' Championship, defeating 2 part-time Red Bull drivers. Quite frankly, Sainz was amazing this season. I always regarded him as a great driver, but I never thought he was this good. Despite being out-qualified by his rookie teammate Lando Norris during the season, Sainz made it count on a Sunday, as I said, finishing P6 in the Drivers' Championship, and even when bad luck hit him, like Austria and Brazil, he bounced back brilliantly, taking a podium in Brazil and taking something like P8 in Austria in a highly congested midfield battle. And this is an interesting point. If you take Gasly and Albon out of the equation, his Carlos Sainz's nearest midfield rival, Daniel Ricciardo, finished on 54 points. That's over 40 points behind Sainz. You can tell how much the Spaniard has dominated this highly intriguing midfield battle, which we have all perceived to be so tight. That comeback drive to take his maiden podium in Brazil was the least he deserved after what has been a pulsating and brilliant 2019 season, but also one of the drives of the season to go from P20 to P3. Yes, it was a chaotic race, but Sainz kept his nose clean and delivered a stunning result. Sainz, of course, finished best of the rest in the Drivers' Championship, finishing P6. He took 96 points from 12 points finishes and, of course, took his maiden podium in Sao Paulo. The only reason why I'm marking Sainz down just slightly is his rather slow start to the season and the fact that he was out-qualified by a rookie, which is something that I do believe needs to be rectified for 2020. But I am taking absolutely nothing away from what has been a fantastic 2019 from the Spaniard. The runner-up spot on my list goes to Dutchman Max Verstappen, who drove by far his best and most complete Formula 1 season to date. Max has been a lot more mature and measured in 2019, and his patience with new manufacturers Honda, or engine suppliers Honda, has been very, very impressive, and he deserves to be recognised for that. When I'm talking about Max being more measured, I'm looking at his racecraft and speed. In qualifying, Max has been the best he's ever been in terms of speed. He's taken 2 pole positions in 2019. That's his 2 first pole positions in Formula 1. And when it comes to his racecraft, he's not going for silly little manoeuvres. Well, 95% of the time, he's generally been right on it, firm but fair. Max took 2 poles, 9 podiums, 3 wins, 278 points, and finished third in the Drivers' Championship. Max's 3 wins came at the Austrian Grand Prix with what I've said before in a previous video, a brilliant pulsating drive despite a poor start. His German Grand Prix was about limiting the amount of mistakes he made, and in the second half of that race he delivered some superb pace. And at the Brazilian Grand Prix, racecraft and brilliant speed intertwined to give Max another brilliant win. Max has made mistakes in 2019, very few of them, but he has made mistakes. In Spa, he was way too aggressive on lap 1 and he ended up crashing out. A race later at Monza, he was too aggressive into turn 1 and he ended up having to pit for a new front wing. And then in Mexico, Max endured a very scruffy weekend with a couple of self-inflicted incidents. Now, it's difficult with Verstappen for my final point on him because during 2019, he was matched up against 2 teammates with not enough experience and especially not enough speed when it comes to qualifying. And therefore, it compromises their weekend. So we don't really have an indication of the car's true potential, and therefore we don't know how much Verstappen is out driving it. That's absolutely nothing against Verstappen, but Gasly and Albon didn't exactly give him the greatest run for his money in 2019, and therefore we don't know how great Max truly has been race by race, but I'm sure he was doing his absolute best to push that Rebel chassis to the max. But I think P2 on this list is about right. So that leaves as my driver of the year for 2019 the newly crowned 6-time world champion Lewis Hamilton. No, I don't think that this was the Brit's best season in Formula 1. I feel that the 2018 campaign of his was flawless and he has made mistakes this season, but even still, Hamilton has been superb. His ability to deal with pressure was still there at a high level this year. Use the Monaco Grand Prix as an example, where Lewis Hamilton delivered a defensive masterclass against Max Verstappen, who was on the Brits' tail lap after lap after lap. Also, Hamilton's ability to apply pressure was also at a very high level this year. Use the Hungarian Grand Prix as another example, where he chased down Max Verstappen for the win of that Grand Prix for the last 20 laps and succeeded, passing the Dutchman in the dying stages to take a stupendous win. One thing I will say about Hamilton's 2019 is how well he's bounced back from rather underwhelming qualifying performances. Hamilton only took 5 pole positions in 2019, and considering he has the most pole positions of any driver in the history of Formula 1, that isn't that great, but he still took 11 race victories, and 8 of them were not from pole. He just doesn't let anyone else breathe, does he? He always finds a way to win. Maybe it's through capitalising on others' mishaps, maybe it's just through his relentless and supreme craftsmanship in wheel-to-wheel combat, or just his innate speed. Hamilton always finds a way. And I don't think Mercedes have had that dominant of a car in 2019. Ferrari took 9 pole positions, Mercedes had 10, and I know it's only qualifying, but track position is also pivotal in Formula 1 these days. But still, Hamilton finds a way to get 11 race victories, 17 podiums, 413 points, and his 6th World Championship in dominant fashion, clinching it at the US Grand Prix. Yes, as I've said before, Hamilton has made mistakes in 2019 in Austria, in Brazil and in Germany, and I wouldn't say he's been the most dazzling driver to watch in 2019, but he has definitely been the most consistent. So guys, that is my list for the top 5 best drivers of the 2019 Formula 1 season, but I just want to quickly point out that any of the top 3, Carlos Sainz, Max Verstappen or Lewis Hamilton, could have easily come out on top on my list. Obviously Lewis Hamilton I ranked number 1, but if I was to look at any other list, I would be happy for any of those 3 to be number 1, because these 3 drivers were so brilliant during the 2019 season. They were basically inseparable. So guys, that is it for today's video. Please like this video, comment down below what you would put as your top 5 best drivers of 2019 and why. And also guys, please send in your questions for my upcoming Q&A. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the F1 Tube YouTube channel for more content like this. But until next time guys, see you later.